So I'm currently in a 2-hour warm-up with Dexcom, and I figured I would manually check my blood sugar for you guys on my contour meter. Just washed my hands, so if I had to guess what my blood sugar is right now, I don't think it's super high, but I don't know. I feel like being without a CGM, it's almost like I said, it's like having diabetes blind. It's like, I don't know what happened between 8:30 this evening and now. Thank goodness I only have like 50 minutes left, but we don't know what's happened in between. So we will see once I do a prick. Not too bad. 147 is a little on the high side, but I'm not going to complain considering I had a pretty big dinner. But who knows if it spiked higher than that or if it just started going up now. I have 0.85 units on board. I'll probably wait another hour and see what Dexcom says and then prick again, and then I'll probably take a correction before I go to bed if it goes up any higher or it stays at this level. But I'm not going to complain. Not too bad. I don't feel high, which is good. If I was to stay at this level or even higher for just a little bit higher for an extended period of time, though, I probably would not feel very good. I probably would have a super dry mouth. When I start getting to 150, 160 for at least 1.5 hours, I start feeling like crap and my body just doesn't feel good. So, anyways, this is my blood sugar, 147. And with that being said, we'll jump into today's video. Hey everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel. And as you can tell by the title of today's video, I'm going to be defining 30 different basic diabetes related terms for those of you that are either newly diagnosed or for people that have family or friends that know that they have diabetes or that they're really close to and are confused as to, like, when we say this word, what is it referring to? And just to kind of give non-diabetics an insight of all these different things that we need to know in order to kind of manage our condition and understand the lingo of diabetes. Some of these terms are more informal, some of these terms are more scientific and more actually fundamentals and what some of the doctors will use for terms. But anyways, with that being said, let's get started. So the first term I have on here is basal insulin, or your lantus. Lantus is a long-acting insulin that is injected once or twice a day, and that's what people take if you're on multiple daily injections or you take shots. That's what you take to cover your basal insulin for 24 hours. Otherwise, basal refers to the amount of insulin you get in units per hour on an insulin pump. For example, mine right now is giving me 0.55 units per hour, or 0.65 units per hour at this time. Right there. 0.65 units an hour. Basal insulin is our background insulin. That's what's always being dumped into us to keep our blood sugars under control, keep our blood sugars stable, and to help out with our hormonal releases from the liver that causes the blood sugars to go up from all the liver spillage. Number 2 is bolus. Bolus means to take insulin for a meal or to take insulin for a certain blood sugar and a meal. On an insulin pump, you simply hit bolus, enter the amount of carbohydrates you're going to eat, your blood sugar, and it will suggest a dose for you. When you're on injections, bolus insulin refers to the rapid-acting insulin you take at meals, or the rapid-acting insulin you take to correct high blood sugar, or the rapid-acting insulin you take to correct a high blood sugar and eat. It's usually Humalog, Novolog, Pedra, Admelog. And it's the same concept. That's what you take when you want to eat, and the same what you want to take when you have a high blood sugar. So that's what bolus means. The I, this stands for multiple daily injections. This is a very basic method to manage blood sugars, and that's what most of us, if not all of us, started on. when we were first diagnosed, and many of us have progressed insulin pumps, and some of us have still decided to stay on multiple daily injections. There's nothing wrong with multiple daily injections. I actually never had a problem doing multiple daily injections, but there are some ups and downs that I will talk about in a future video of the pros and cons to MDI, but that is what that acronym means. Number 4 is CGM. CGM stands for a continuous glucose monitor, which is a device either like a, oh my gosh, look at that bleeder, you guys. That is either a Dexcom or a Libre or an Enlite Guardian sensor. It's usually just a little wire that sits under the skin, and that continuously, like it says, it continuously measures blood glucose. And in addition to measuring blood glucose, it also gives us a directional arrow as to where our blood sugar is headed. Is it headed up fast? Is it headed down fast? Is it headed up a little bit? Is it headed up a lot? Or headed down a little bit? Or is it staying steady and stable at a certain level? And I would say most of them are fairly accurate, especially the one I have, the Dexcom G6, is pretty much spot on. It is approved for no finger sticks. So that's what CGM means. Number 5 is pricker or poker. Depending on who you ask, they may call the lancing device a pricker or a poker. I just call it my pricker. I don't know why, but it's the thing that you push against your skin. It's got a little needle in it, and you pull the device back to cock it and push a button, and it goes in and out to lance your fingertip to get a little blood sample out to test it on a strip. Number 6 is unicorn. Unicorn actually has 3 different meanings. The first meaning is a blood sugar of 100. The second meaning is when your continuous glucose monitor and your blood sugar meter match. So it's to say my Dexcom was working, and I pricked my finger for you guys, and if my Dexcom said 147, and this also says 147, that is a unicorn. The third definition of a unicorn is in the eyes of Dr. Bernstein, and that is the number 83, or a blood sugar of 83. That is the average fasting blood sugar of a non-diabetic. And a lot of non-diabetics, if they are properly taking care of themselves, their blood sugars will rest between 70 and 100, and oftentimes they will sit in the low to mid 80s, which is hence the term 83, which is also another unicorn, especially for those of you that eat low carb, or for those of you that really strive for non-diabetic levels like me. I consider an 83 more so of a unicorn than a 100. Not saying a 100 is a bad blood sugar, but if you want to think about it in non-diabetes terms, an 83 is the true unicorn. Number 7 is the insulin sensitivity factor. This is how sensitive you are to the insulin you take. The number determines how much 1 unit of insulin will drop you in either milligrams per deciliter or millimoles per liter. For me, 1 unit of insulin will drop my blood sugar 70 milligrams per deciliter. Meaning if I start out with a blood sugar of 200, once I take insulin, when that insulin cycles through, within 2 to 3 hours, I should be down to 130 milligrams per deciliter. Number 8 is insulin to carb ratio. This is how many units of insulin we take per the amount of carbohydrates we eat. You usually calculate this by hand, or if you're on a pump, it'll kind of calculate it for you. But when we say we're on a 1 per 10 or a 1 per 12 or a 1 per 8, that means 1 unit will cover us that many grams of carbohydrate. And carbohydrates are found in most foods. And particularly if you're a non-diabetic, they're found in foods that you wouldn't even think of, like pastas and breads and potatoes and rice. Any of them starchy foods. Number 9 is BG. This is just a shortened way of saying blood glucose or blood sugar. Check your BG. What's your BG at? How's your BG today? Kind of just an easier way to abbreviate things. Number 10 is target blood sugar. This is a goal that you set for yourself, that you always correct your blood sugars to, and if they're above that level, you drop them down to get to that level. Everybody's will be different. Mine used to be 150, meaning that any blood sugar over 150 when I went to eat, or if I were to check it, if it was over 150, I had to take a correction. Now, anything over 100, I correct to a blood sugar of 100, and I correct blood sugars that are over 140 consistently. So target BGs can vary from person to person, but mine is 100 milligrams per deciliter, which is 5.5 millimoles per liter. Number 11 is Endo. This is just a short way of saying endocrinologist, which is your typical diabetes doctor. Number 12 is Rage Bolus. And a rage bolus is one of those things where you take more insulin than what you need to correct a high blood sugar down, bring a high blood sugar down. So some people will do this when they know their blood sugar's headed up really quick on a Dexcom, or they're just panicked about high blood sugar, and then in turn it causes a low. So let's say your blood sugar was 250 and you need only, based upon if your calculations are correct and if you have your insulin sensitivity factor set, you need 2 units to bring you down to your target. And somebody who would rage bolus would probably take 4 or 5 and end up causing a low blood sugar. Now, you may be able to rage bolus in a safer way, but I don't think rage bolusing is safe. The next term I'm going to talk about, though, I'm going to talk about this in a future video, that I think insulin stacking is a little bit different. So that leads into number 13, insulin stacking. That is taking multiple doses of insulin within a short period of time. Say you're taking a shot more than every 30 minutes or every hour or something like that. That's insulin stacking. Typically, you wait 2 to 3 hours in between injections. And if you don't wait that amount of time, you could cause a low blood sugar. Now, I think there's a difference between I've done this, taking your dose, and if you miscalculated carbs or something went wrong and your blood sugars is going up, I don't think there's nothing wrong with micro stacking insulin, meaning that you take, if you want to do a 0.7 to kind of not let that blood sugar rise a lot, and then you notice like 30 minutes to 40 minutes later it's still not stopping, taking another 0.3 is not going to hurt you. Now, if you took another 10, oh yeah, then definitely that's insulin stacking. But that's a fine line, and I'm going to talk about that in the future, but that's what insulin stacking is. 14 is sub-Q. This is just a shortened abbreviation for subcutaneous, which is the tissue that sits just below the skin, and that is where we inject our insulin into. Number 15 is Dex. This is just a shortened abbreviation for those of you that use Dexcom. Some of you call it Dex. Sometimes I even call it Dex. This is Dex. It saves my life every single day, and I'm absolutely in love with Dex. I will never, ever give up my Dex. Number 16 is extended bolus. Now, this is more for people that are on pumps. I've kind of imitated this on shots, and I'll try to explain how I did that. But an extended bolus only gives you so much of your insulin up front, and the rest gets kind of dispersed in you slowly over a period of so many hours for whatever you set. So say you want 50% of your dose now, and you want the other 15% delivered over an hour, you can do that to try to, A, be more safe and not cause a low. B, it works good for heavier fat or heavier protein foods. So when those get digested slowly, you may not need as much insulin up front, but you need some more afterwards. That's what extended boluses really are helpful with. Number 17 is temp basal. It's just like what it says it is. It is adjusting your basal rate in a temporary situation to adjust for exercise or sickness or stress or too much sitting, or just having a really off diabetes day, hormonal things. That is a good way to adjust your basal in a temporary or a non-permanent manner to kind of adjust what you're going through in the moment. Number 18 is cannula. That is usually the little tube that sits underneath our skin if you have an insulin pump. Cannulas are usually soft, flexible plastic tubes that are inserted with a automatic needle or a needle that you push in your body, and the needle retracts, leaving the little plastic tube of cannula or the cannula sitting inside, and then it is then connected to your site. Or if you're an omnipodder like me, it is connected to your pod and your reservoir. Number 19 is bleeder or gusher. Now, that's what they call, especially if you have a CGM site, the bleeders are the readers. That means that they're going to usually read good, and I found this to be true for me. But if you have a bleeder or a gusher on an insulin pump, probably not a good thing. I've had this happen. You change it out. Most likely you're going to have bad insulin absorption. But you can see I had a little bit of blood coming out here, but I believe this bleeder is going to be a reader. And then, by the way, this is my favorite spot to put my Dexcom. Super accurate. It's out of the way. I don't get compression lows. I don't get inaccuracies. I just took it off of this side of my arm, and I put it on the opposite side of my arm for this round. Number 20 is hyper, which is just an abbreviation for hyperglycemia or high blood sugar. Hypo is 21, and that again is an abbreviation for hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar. Number 22 is free food. This is foods that we as diabetics can eat without taking insulin. Free foods are usually things like meats, cheeses, really, really low carb vegetables like, you know, asparagus or cucumbers, or anything of that sorts that really doesn't contain a lot of carbs or no fats or no proteins, or basically water-based. Well, meat and cheese do have some protein, but it's really, if you eat it in small quantities, it's probably not going to affect your blood sugar. But those are free foods, and those are sugar-free jellos, diet drinks. Those are foods that are safe for us to consume without having to give ourselves insulin. Number 23 is pre-bolus. This means to take your insulin dose or your insulin injection and wait so many minutes before you begin consuming your meal to allow the insulin to be absorbed into the bloodstream first. I have talked about this many, many times. It is one of the techniques I use to avoid blood sugar spikes and keep normal blood sugars as much as possible. I will try to remember to leave links to my videos where I talked about pre-bolusing, but I highly recommend it for any type 1 diabetic. Number 24, which is a sad one, but insulin rationing. This is when people have such high deductibles or they cannot afford their own insulin that they ration it, meaning that they take, that they're not eating enough food to sustain energy to save on insulin, or they are not taking the appropriate amount of insulin to cover a meal. If they needed 5 units at a meal, they may only take 2 or 3 and risk running high blood sugars because they need to have so much insulin last them for as long as possible. And this is dangerous. This is deadly. It can actually kill people, and it has killed people, and I think it's a shame that we have to be paying for insulin. But I know we're going to eventually come to a solution here, or we're all going to be running to Canada or Mexico and buying our insulin. Pretty ridiculous, in my opinion, that some people have to choose between insulin and rent, and that's a shame. Even with people that have insurance, if you have insurance and you're working for it, insulin should be covered the same. Liquid gold. Why is it called liquid gold? Because it's so dang expensive. Or life juice. I call it life juice. This is when we might nickname our insulin. I take Humalog. Some of you may take Novolog, Admelog, Apidra, but this is a 10 milliliter vial, and there are people, like I said, out in this world that are rationing this and make it last as long as possible, or use expired insulin or whatever to save money or not have to spend so much. But that is our liquid gold. That is our lifeline. Nobody can go without insulin and type 1 diabetics because we cannot produce it. We cannot go without it. Number 26 is your set or your pod. This is what we call where we put our insulin pump, and that is where that little cannula sits. That's where our adhesive sits, and that's where it attaches to our tubing. Or if you have an Omnipod, is where it attaches to your reservoir. So a podder would refer to a person who uses the Omnipod. A person who has an infusion set would refer to somebody who's using a Medtronic pump or a tandem T-Slim pump. Number 27 is to correct to high. That means that we're trying to take that high blood sugar and fix it and bring it down to our target range. Number 28 is to treat a low. That means that we're trying to eat a certain amount of rapid-acting carbohydrates, usually in the form of like hard candies that aren't chocolate-based, glucose tablets, juice, regular soda, fruit, snacks, anything like that that's basically pure sugar will allow our blood sugar to be treated when it is low to get it back up into a safe and healthy level. And number 29 is A1C. I've made videos all about an A1C, but if you're a non-diabetic, an A1C, when we refer to it, that is an average blood sugar reading taken over a period of 3 months to give us a general idea of how our blood sugars have been doing. It is an average converted into a percentage. So my A1C is 5.9%, which converts to an average blood sugar of about 122, 123. And somebody tells you their blood sugar is 8.9 or 12.6 or 6.7 or 5.1. That just lets us and our doctors know how we're managing, and our goal is to be less than 7% by the guides of the ADA. Now, I believe in less than 6. My eye doctor believes in less than 6.5, but you have to talk to a variety of different people to understand where they're coming from those perspectives. And number 30, last but not least, is ketones. When we have to check for ketones, we are either peeing on a stick or pricking our finger and putting our blood onto a special test strip into a special testing machine for ketones. And ketones are biochemical byproducts that are made that are typically, they can be made healthily, but in the terms of a type 1 diabetic, if you have high ketones, it probably means you have dangerously high blood sugars, which means you need to be monitoring them closely to make sure that you're not going into what is called DKA, or diabetic ketoacidosis, which can be fatal, and which is what a lot of us are diagnosed in when we were first diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I myself was in severe diabetic ketoacidosis at my diagnosis nearly 1 year ago, and it can kill you, and my ketone levels are very high, and when our blood sugars get above a certain level, particularly above 250 for an extended period of time, we are probably passing ketones out, because our body is no longer can metabolize the carbohydrates or the sugar in our bloodstream because we don't have enough insulin. So then our body breaks down fat, and fat is turned into a product called ketones, which we then can detect in the urine or the blood. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, it's more geared for people who are newly diagnosed, or people that watch my channel that want to have a dictionary, or like a little diabetes dictionary of some terms that they can share with people that they're around a lot and are confused about these terms and they don't have time to explain them all. Just send them to my video and let them watch it. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I post videos every single week about diabetes plus more. Stay tuned for more videos. I've got lots of great videos coming out for you in July. Looking forward to this month. It's going to be a pretty good month, I think, as far as diabetes related content on this channel. If you do decide to subscribe, remember there's a notification bell. When you click that notification bell, YouTube should send you a notification on any of your devices that you watch YouTube videos on when I upload something new. So until next time for more videos, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. Bye everyone.